Hey everybody, this is Robert from the DDS Podcast. Thanks for tuning in, listening in, wherever you are across the world and in the United States. Quick programming note to mention this week, we're going to be doing a series of lightning decision jams in support of the Global Virtual Design Sprint. Those will take on such topics as the United Nations Sustainable Development Goals, planes, trains, and automobiles, educating kids, the future of voice, a ton of different topics for you to choose from. If you want to get involved, check us out on Facebook and look for Virtual Design Sprint events. There'll be more information once you go there. On today's show, we're featuring Adam Perlis. He's the CEO of Academy Product Design School, which offers end-to-end design, development, research, and analytics, as well as team-based training. He's a former head of design and UX for Time Magazine, Fortune, and Money.com. He's been a speaker at South by Southwest, Web Summit, Northside Festival, and other engagements. He's also a practitioner, working as a designer and developer in UX, UI design, front-end and back-end development, 2D and 3D motion graphics, video production. And to top it all off, he's a design sprint facilitator, a user experience expert, and also very versed in design thinking. It made for a very interesting conversation on our podcast today, and I hope you enjoy it. So Adam, thank you very much for coming on the show. Really looking forward to talking to you today.
You as well. Thanks so much, Robert.
So you are the CEO of Academy Product Design Studio. You're a UX expert, a design thinker, a sprint facilitator. You're a former head of design and UX for Time Magazine, where you oversaw the redesign of Time, Fortune, and Money.com. I should step away and say, really, you want to talk on my podcast? Because this sounds like some heavy hitting right there in the design field. But why don't you give the audience an idea of what you're all about and what your company's all about?
Yeah, absolutely. So, as you mentioned, I'm the CEO and founder of Academy, a product design studio. And, really the reason we started the company was about 2 years ago. I was ready to make a move and start my own thing. And I identified this, area in the market that I thought was a really big opportunity. And I had been working across many agencies, many big corporations for a long time, and saw this same problem cropping up, which is that we'd spend 6 months to a year building something. Some stakeholder might come in at the end of the process and say, I don't like it, and change everything and blow up the project. Or perhaps we wouldn't have tested with users until the very end. They would say, well, we didn't want or need any of these features. And I saw this as like a big problem of the ways of working. And I thought, you know what, maybe we can change this model a little bit. And so we founded Academy on this principle that we could embed deeply with our clients and bring them into the process more. Really foundationally, we took a look at user experience design, design thinking, and ultimately design sprints as a process, as a way to sort of work with our clients, embed them in our teams, and really embed in their teams and work collaboratively so that we could put together ideas, test them, and validate them earlier in the process, while also including stakeholders earlier in the process so that everybody felt like their voice was being heard and that we never had the problem again of building something and wasting all this time and money and resources without validating first. That's what I've been up to for the past 2 years, and luckily, been pretty successful over that time.
Did the design sprint process catch on fairly quickly when you were first starting out with Academy? Was it something that you had to do a little bit of teaching and preaching with your clients? What was your experience?
So, actually, Academy from the very beginning was founded with this very principle. Like we didn't exist in any other way. And so when we started to pitch clients, for many of them, it was quite new. And so they were unfamiliar with the process, but nearly every single one of them would say, well, that makes a heck of a lot of sense. Why aren't we doing it that way, anyways? For the most part, it's been a pretty easy sell once we explain it, but it does require a lot of reconfiguration of their mindset and the way that they approach these types of problems, because they're not so used to actually being so involved, especially with some of our older clients who have been accustomed to working with agencies in a different way. I think that it's been a little bit of a shock, but what's good is that they also generally trust us because they understand that we are experts in what we do. And as a result, they sort of let hold of the reins a little bit and allow us to sort of take control of the ship. And it's a great thing because that mutual respect and trust enables us to build better products.
Are the majority of your clients based out of Brooklyn and New York, or are they all over the U.S.?
Truly, they're all over. We've worked with people in New York. We've worked with people outside of New York and in California. We're starting to do some work in some other countries as well, including England. We're starting to expand into different markets. And what's good is a lot of the work we can do remotely, and then a small fraction of the work we do in person, right? Like we'll go in, we'll work collaboratively with our clients, and we will essentially spend 5 days locked in a room together. But coming out of that 5 days sprint, we're able to go back and take a lot of that information and go, really synthesize it and actually go execute. And then it's like sort of just a matter of setting a cadence to meetings and creative reviews to make sure that everything is done in order and that we're making progress. But otherwise, we found a really nice working relationship and are able to sort of be malleable and flexible in terms of traveling to go work with those clients directly.
So when clients refer you to other clients or to other opportunities, what kind of language do you hear? What do they say about your company and what you provide?
We've been lucky to have a few of our clients recommend us to other groups. We've really solidified ourselves in a few areas. One is process. I think a lot of our clients really respect that we're so clear in the way that we work and like the way that we deliver. And I think that a lot of other groups maybe don't have that either formality. Now, a lot of agencies do, but some of our clients are sometimes a little bit earlier stage. They've never even worked with an agency or a studio before. And oftentimes they've maybe hired just like a random like freelance UX designer. And then there's more like larger Fortune 500 clients that we work with who do have that established process, but also are unfamiliar with our work and like how we do it. To them, it's all sort of fresh. So I think that's like one thing that we do really well is process. The quality of our work, right? Like the output, like we're giving really clear deliverables that are super organized, and we communicate really well and fluidly between design, development, and product team. Our knowledge base is extremely in depth. We can talk about any subject with a lot of clarity and a lot of deep-seated knowledge. And I think that's a huge benefit to and a testament to the team that works on these projects.
And this thinking and approach you have with process going into this year, what are some things that you're looking forward to? How do you see Academy starting to evolve and grow and expand as a company? What's your focus on?
We've been sort of evolving our process because, over the past 2 years or so, we've been working in a way where we've tried to fit the design sprint model into the corporate environment. And that's certainly been challenging because corporations have a lot of red tape. They have a lot of stakeholders who have limited time. They have a lot of existing processes that we need to break, and also a lot of cultural change that needs to happen. And so all of that takes time and can be challenging. But in the ways that we found it to be most effective, we have now sort of changed our model from trying to adapt the sprint to the corporate model and instead create our own model that we know is fundamentally just going to work. And hopefully, we think that some of the corporations, now that design sprints have become more popular, will adapt back to us. So we've moved to, back to a more 5-day sprint model. We had originally done more of like a 10-day model because a lot of stakeholders might not be able to be involved. But now some of our clients are sort of adopting this as well. So it's making it a lot easier to work. So we have our 5-day sprint where we do more conceptual work, right? We'll pick out a few key moments in a journey and say, all right, well, we'll design to that and test it and validate it. And then we'll move that into a more detailed design sprint where we can really flesh out an experience and work on all those different user journeys that might exist, or all those use cases or edge cases that might be needing to be designed but aren't necessarily the thing that we need to test most immediately. And so that process seems to be working well and has changed the cadence of how we work with our clients. So yeah, we're excited about how that will play out in the future. And we're always adapting. I mean, we don't say that there's any one right way to do this. We always want to be malleable and flexible, because if we're going to stay true to our own practice of design thinking, well, we need to also design think ourselves.
Have you found that your approach to design sprints in your process has appealed to a certain vertical in the market, or has it been across the board appealing depending on who you involve and who you're referred to?
No, I'd say that it has mass appeal. Like we've worked with clients from real estate developers to fashion companies to telco and to some other high tech companies. So it really, and we've spoken to companies also across the board, also pharmaceutical. Really, everybody can benefit from a process like this, which is amazing and makes our jobs a lot easier. And we frankly like that too, because it helps bring a lot of diversity into the type of work that we do and our expertise.
So what's really interesting about your background to me is that you have a mix of both business and design. It's not just the application of design or the deep understanding of the principles of it, but you come from it from the perspective of, okay, this is one element of the process, but there has to be a focus on how this is going to help outcomes, how this is going to generate revenue, how this is going to manage to market share and other things that companies care about. Have you always had a strong focus on design with that business background, or at some point in your career, was there a bit of a transition from having a business mindset going into design?
It's a great question. It's funny because I actually studied business in college. It was my major. I studied marketing. I was in the business school. I didn't study design at all. I was totally self-taught as a designer. I think there was a time early in my design career that I certainly valued the design over some of the business objectives, but I always had a mind for it, right? I understood it. As I grew into different roles and became more senior, I started to understand a little bit more about the business value propositions and how to design so that we could meet some of those business objectives, right? Because at the end of the day, if those aren't met, we're not keeping the lights on, and that means we don't have jobs. Additionally, beyond the business objectives, I also started to see that users needed things. And if those things didn't align, then that product was going to fail no matter what. Whether it got the business objectives or not, if the users didn't like it, it was going to fail. It's been super important to me. I can't say it enough that if we were going to start this company and do this, like it needed to have a user-focused approach. And then second, needed to also fit the business objectives. And so with every client that we work with now, those two things must be set as deliverables and KPIs ahead of a project even beginning.
Your disposition towards creating a proper foundation for a business, did any of your previous experiences with starting Podium back in 2014 and also working for the head of design and UX at Time Magazine, did those experiences did they mold your certain view on how a business should be started and run right from the very beginning?
It's funny you mentioned Podium. It was a great experience for me because I'd never tried starting a startup before. I had an idea. I thought it was worth like trying to build. I learned a lot from it. I think one of the primary things was that I actually didn't know how to start a startup. I had a cool idea that I wanted to build, but I didn't even know all the business fundamentals of what that might entail, like raising money and hiring a team. I'd say in terms of where I am now, to speak to the Time Magazine experience, when I got to Time Magazine, I recognized that they had no idea how to build product yet. They had just started this team. My responsibility was to build the team from scratch and really build out our design practice. When I got there, they didn't know what a UX designer was. We had to hire UX designers. We trained everybody on Sketch. We got everyone an Invision account. We started to engage our user testing team, which they had never been contacted by this group before. We started to build this idea around design sprints and testing design sprints at its earliest stages on like small little things to make sure would actually be able to implement this in a large organization. And then eventually we were able to get them up and running and prove a lot of value, so much so that it got brought to the head of design of Time Inc. And they said, hey, can you present this process in front of everybody? And I said, yeah, absolutely. And so all of a sudden, all the other teams were asking us to run design sprints for them. It became a much bigger thing. And actually, we ended up having Fortune and money roll into the work that I was doing. And we got to run some design sprints for them as well. And that got me thinking like, man, okay, there's something here. And I started to take that to talks. I went to Web Summit and South by Southwest and a few other major conferences, and people would come up to me afterward and say, wow, that's an incredible story of that transformation that you led. Can you do this in my company? And I was thinking, maybe I could. And so that was the impetus, to start Academy and really try to focus a company on helping other companies transform their design practices and build products from the ground up and do it in a way that was smart. And I think that in building Academy for the first time, a lot of the experience that I learned from Podium, I was able to not repeat a lot of those same mistakes and really got things going correctly from the beginning. I was also a lot older and wiser, so that helped.
It always does, or at least it's supposed to. That's what we keep telling ourselves. And if we feel comfortable with how we're thinking about things, I think that's a good thing. How do you usually employ your strengths with these different engagements that you have? I mean, you're on the Invision Design Leadership Forum.
Yep.
You work as a mentor for General Assembly. How have you seen these things play out?
Throughout my entire career, I've really focused on a few things. One is that I've constantly been learning something new. Like when I first started out my career in the creative industry, because I made a switch. I was working as an account manager at Digitas. I then had an opportunity, because I've done a lot of internships in television production, to move over to NBC Sports, where I became a production assistant, and I learned how to edit, and I learned how to write, and I learned how to produce and even do motion graphics like After Effects and Cinema 4D, and like I learned all these skills, and I really pushed myself. Like I was teaching myself on the internet, like literally on the side at nights and weekends, putting in the time, and became an expert in Final Cut and an expert in Premiere and Avid and as I mentioned, After Effects and Cinema 4D, and I realized as I started to grow my career beyond NBC Sports, I needed to learn Photoshop and Illustrator so I could be a better motion, graphics designer. And then I was like, well, I see the world is moving towards web, so I need to learn how to like design for web. So I started to learn more about like Sketch and coding. And I was like, all right, well, I need to learn how to code now. So I learned how to code too. And now I'm learning how to be a front end and back end developer, and just kept growing, right? Like I kept building my skill sets. And the thing that I always told myself, and I didn't know at the time where things would go, was like, I just need to learn how to walk in everyone else's shoes so that I can speak intelligently to them and understand them and empathize with them, so that when I managed these teams or that I worked with these teams, that I could speak really intelligently about the things that we were going to do and have a lot of knowledge. That has benefited me deeply in my career. And as I now see it, which is amazing, you start to see roles like product designer be a hybrid of both UX and UI and interaction design, which involve all the skills that I have learned, from design to user experience to motion graphics. That position never existed up until this moment. And so it's kind of cool to see like all the hard work that I put in to learn those things has really made me a student of all those areas, and a really great partner, especially as I walk into big client meetings and someone has a tech question and I can answer it, or someone has a question about motion design or interaction design, I can answer it. So it's been incredibly valuable to me, and as I mentor students and also talk to people at the in forums like the Design Leadership Forum, it really makes me an asset that's totally indispensable to people. The advice I try to impart on people I mentor and the people that work for me as well.
Learning by doing has been a mantra of yours for a while then.
Yes.
It's very admirable.
And I'll tell you that even today, I continue that practice. I mean, over the past 2 years, I've really focused on usability studies and how to conduct them and how to conduct research. Previous to that, I always relied on other people to do that for me. And so I needed to learn about that. And now when I go into a client meeting and I need to discuss it with them, I can speak really intelligently about it and even make better suggestions to my researchers who, sometimes are more junior than me, have questions, and they need mentorship and guidance. We're a small team. We don't have that ability to have director level people who can give that to our junior team. That allows us that opportunity, and I like to do it.
So tell me a little bit about your work with Working Not Working and being on the members board there. And I have kind of a selfish reason for asking this question is because I'm building out a referral network for design sprint facilitators. And I know that Working Not Working kind of has a platform that's similar to that, but you can tell me otherwise. What's been the appeal about working with Working Not Working? That's a mouthful.
Yeah, I've actually been a part of their community since the very beginning. There's some member number on there somewhere, probably one of the first 100 members of the community. And they've been just fantastic partners for me in many regards. They are a exclusive community. You have to apply to get in. Your portfolio is reviewed by the members board, which that's one of the things that I'm a part of. And then I think if you have 3 members board members accept your portfolio, then you'll be admitted to the platform. I think that it's been great in a few regards. One is that it has gotten me a lot of work over the years. I've gotten several freelance gigs because of it, and they're usually really high quality freelance gigs. Not just any company comes on there. There's top level companies. And so for that reason, I think it's pretty great from a freelancer perspective. On the opposite side, as somebody who hires, it's also been great to use it because it's an online platform. It allows me to look through a bunch of candidates quickly and allows me to follow those candidates so that I can keep track and then eventually reach out. And the only fees that I'm paying are a monthly fee with them. Now, I have some more issues with their pricing because it's kind of expensive for a small company like mine. So I wish they could change that, which I happen to be quite friendly with some of the founders there. Overall, I'd say it's been a positive experience. And they've also done a really great job of building community. Every year they do a members board Christmas dinner, and they do a community Christmas party. And they generally just have a really awesome community of people that knows each other, because the design community, even in New York, which seems like huge, actually is quite small, and everybody kind of knows each other in some way.
Interesting. My assumption would be, living in Texas, that New York would have a huge design community there that would probably fracture depending on what kind of discipline they concentrated on. But would you say that the subgroup you're talking about says specifically towards visual design or digital design, or is it just all sorts of groups? And from a design perspective, it's just smaller than what you would expect.
Yeah, I suppose I was talking more about it in the metaphoric sense. While New York obviously has thousands and thousands of designers, everybody somehow knows each other here. Mm-hmm. And because of the culture of networking and interconnectedness of so many of the agencies that are based here and the communities that are built around tech, everybody kind of knows each other in some way. While it's certainly big in numbers, it's small in the sense that word travels fast and it's easy to connect the dots here.
So looking ahead to this year, we're talking again in 2020, hopefully looking just as good as we do now. And we're talking about and reflecting on 2019. Maybe you have a glass of wine or whatever your favorite beverage is, and I'm still in the same shirt. What would be a great year and what would be a fantastic year for you?
Right now, we're in a really interesting place. In our 2 years of existence, we've had some really great clients, and more recently, we've been getting meetings that, we never thought we would get before, sort of leveling up the brands that we are in conversations with. I can't really mention what those are now, but they're some of the top in the industry, which is incredible for us. Of course, landing some of those deals is the harder part, right? And in addition, one of our biggest challenges has been scaling our team and getting really high quality talent. Talent is probably the number one priority that we have. And while more revenue is always great and closing deals is super important, of course, to keep the lights on, we won't be able to achieve any of that if we don't have the right teams in place. I've been focusing on two key areas. One is growing our own brand and how people perceive us and making us top of mind for groups that are interested in finding a group that really specializes in product design and in particular that emphasizes UX and design thinking principles. Two is building out that talent network. One of the ways that we're going to focus on is actually a new initiative that we're working on that I think is super fun and just checks so many boxes on those two goals, which is called dream projects. As designers, there's always these projects that we always dream of working on. And we don't often have the opportunity to do them because we have to be at the right place at the right time, right opportunity. And so few people get that chance. So we wanted to release a number of different briefs that on a monthly basis we'd set a competition against, where people can submit essentially their own designs and case studies for a particular subject matter. Like think design the first app for the US presidential election, or perhaps redesign the New York City subway system ticketing app. What might look a in-car interface look like for the new Tesla? These types of projects where you don't always get the opportunity to work on something like that, but we thought, you know what, there's this whole community of people, especially as I meet so many young designers who call me and ask me for advice. And oftentimes they have the same portfolio as someone else because they've gone through some program like, let's say General Assembly, which God bless General Assembly for the work that they do because they've started a lot of great things. But unfortunately, a lot of their designers come out with the same exact portfolio. And I want to see something new and fresh. So I try to encourage everyone. I'm like, hey, look, design some platform that you've been interested in redesigning, or go create something new, so I can just see your thinking. This whole initiative is to sort of both inspire those individuals to go out and have a project to work against, teach them how to do it the right way because they'll be able to see some of the winners and why they won, increase our profile so that people become more aware of us, and then of course attract more talent, even learn about talent that we may have never been able to hear about before because of this platform. So yeah, we're super excited. We're hoping that by sometime in March, we'll be able to launch our first dream project to the community. And we're currently in the process of sort of fleshing out the details of how that will all work. So yeah, very exciting for the future.
It sounds amazing. And I want to add to that because I think I may have something that's coming up in April that could complement that initiative very well, or at least help it get the outcomes that you're looking for, brand recognition, getting designers to work with a larger group of people. And that's the Global Virtual Design Sprint event that's happening in April that I'm putting on.
Perfect.
So it's essentially the same pilot that we did in November, but now it's expanded to charities, competitions, regular design sprints for people that want to take a masterclass certification and actually apply it towards a real sprint, all the way to custom events that some companies are doing local events. They want to tie in a virtual component to it. So there's conversations happening in the next couple of months on how it's going to work. After hearing that explanation, I would love to have a conversation outside this podcast about it and see how what I'm doing can leverage and help what you eventually want to achieve with this.
Absolutely. Well, we're all about partnerships, and we want to expand this even further to making it a much larger competition, possibly with sponsorships and prizes involved. So the more traction we can get and the more partnerships we can build.
So if people want to find out more about you and Academy and everything that's going on with your company, where do they go online to look for that?
If you want to check out Academy, please go to academyux.com. Definitely find out a lot more about our process, our work, our methodologies. In terms of finding me, please feel free to follow me on LinkedIn and Twitter. I'm often posting on LinkedIn. I think those are the two best channels to reach me. But, you guys can feel free to reach out through our website, and I'll be sure to respond.
And the Dream Projects initiative that you're doing, I'm assuming that'll come on Academy UX when that's available and for people to see, correct?
Yes, more to come on that for sure. Staying tuned on social media. LinkedIn and Twitter are going to be the best places to get the most up-to-date information on that. But eventually, yes, on our website, we will be having a page for sure touting that. And we may even, in sort of round or phase 2 of this project, be launching a website that will correspond with a social media initiative across Instagram, Dribbble, and LinkedIn to help really promote the initiative and showcase the work.
Fantastic. Well, Adam, it was really great talking with you today. I'm sure we're going to talk again soon.
Absolutely. Great meeting you, Robert. And thank you so much for having me. I really appreciate it.
Thanks again for listening to the Dallas Design Sprints podcast. If you have a question or a comment on the show, be sure to email me at robert@dallasdesignsprints.com. You can also find Dallas Design Sprints on Instagram, Pinterest, YouTube, Facebook, and even LinkedIn. Be sure to visit virtualdesignsprint.com for our upcoming global virtual design sprint happening in the month of April. Take care of yourself, and we'll see you next time.